Yul Brynner seemed untouchable in Hollywood until one co-star pushed him over the edge. During The Magnificent Seven, this rebel would shake his shotgun shells during Brynner's important lines. He'd twist in his saddle to steal attention. Brynner demanded more close-ups and screen time. The director grew tired of the constant arguments. Their bitter rivalry nearly destroyed the film. When Brynner finally confronted him, grabbing him in front of everyone, the set went silent. Today, we're going to deep dive into Hollywood's most notorious feud. Yul Brynner didn't just act on screen. He acted in real life, too. He built a version of himself so mysterious that no one really knew where he came from. One day, he'd say he was born on Sakhalin Island. Another time, he claimed he was born under the stars among Roma tribes. Sometimes he called himself Taijekan, with a mix of Swiss and Japanese blood. His stories changed constantly, and for years people believed them. But the truth was simpler. He was born on July 11, 1920, in Vladivostok, Russia, at 15 Aleyutskaya Street. His real name was Yul Borisovich Brynner. Even the year of his birth wasn't safe from his edits. He told reporters he was born in 1915. Others heard 1922. It wasn't until his son, Roch Brynner, wrote a biography in 1989 that the truth finally came out. By then, the myths had done their work. Brynner had already made himself larger than life. The exotic roots he liked to claim were part real, part fiction. His father, Boris Brynner, was of Swiss, German, and Russian background, a mining engineer and inventor. His grandfather, Jules Brynner, had come from Switzerland in the 1870s and built a successful business in Vladivostok. His mother, Marusia, was Russian and trained in music and acting. There may have been some Buryat ancestry in the family, but there was no proof of Mongolian or Romani heritage like he often claimed. Still, he embraced Romani culture so deeply that in 1977 he was named honorary president of the International Romani Union. Brynner's habit of rewriting his past wasn't a random quirk. It was a strategy. In 1950s Hollywood, a mysterious background could be your biggest asset. He knew that, so he crafted wild stories of royal bloodlines, tragic losses, and wandering childhoods. He called himself Yul Khan, Taijek Khan, even Yul Taijik Khan. Every new alias added to his mystique. These stories helped him land roles that fed into his exotic stranger image, especially as King Mongkut in The King and I, a role he played over 4,000 times. But there was a downside, too. These stories became a trap. He was so good at being the mysterious outsider that Hollywood stopped seeing him as anything else. Behind the mask, there was pain. In 1923, when Yul was just 3, his father left the family for a Moscow actress. The shock devastated his mother, Marusia, who had to raise Yul and his sister Vera on her own. She packed up their lives and moved them to Harbin, China, in search of safety and a new beginning. Yul's first real memories formed there, in a city full of refugees, cultures, and constant change. In Harbin, they joined a YMCA school that exposed Yul to a mix of Russian, Chinese, and Western ideas. The young boy, already fluent in Russian, began picking up Chinese and bits of English and French. And then something magical happened. He discovered theater, not through Western plays, but through Chinese opera. He became fascinated with Mai Long Thang, a male performer famous for playing female roles. The bright costumes, the delicate gestures, the full transformation on stage. It was spellbinding. It taught Yul that performance could erase boundaries, even gender. But Harbin didn't stay peaceful. In the early 1930s, Japan's grip on the region tightened. War was looming. In 1934, Marusia once again made a bold choice. She took her children and fled to Paris. It was a risky move. They had little money, no secure future, but it gave Yul something he hadn't had before: access to the heart of European art. In Paris, Yule enrolled at Lycée Moncel. He picked up French quickly and became fluent in 4 languages. But classrooms bored him. He skipped lessons to wander through Montmartre, where street performers, painters, and musicians filled the air with creativity. One night in 1935, at just 15, he heard a group of Russian gypsy musicians playing in a Paris nightclub. The raw emotion in their songs struck something deep inside him. He decided he had to play too. With his mother's support, he learned the guitar and started performing in small venues. That same year, he made his public debut at the Hermitage Cabaret. By the late 1930s, his French had improved so much that he became a radio announcer. His voice, clear and confident, cut through the airwaves. It was more than a job. It became training for a future he didn't yet know was coming. During World War II, this same voice would broadcast messages to occupied France. Behind the charm and talent, a survivor was taking shape. Then came the circus. Brinner took to the skies as a trapeze artist in the famous Cirque des Verts. For 5 years, he lived in mid-air. The danger thrilled him. He chased freedom, risk, and love. Too much love, maybe. Rumors followed him. Affairs with older women, backstage tensions. But none of that mattered when he flew through the air, until the day he fell. A severe back injury ended it all in an instant. The pain was unbearable. He turned to narcotics to cope, and addiction followed. He spent a year in a Swiss clinic, fighting to climb out of the darkness. The fall had nearly killed him, but it also hardened him. He later said nothing ever compared to flying on the trapeze. Still, he knew he needed a new path. In 1941, he took one. With war swallowing Europe, Brinner and his sick mother boarded the President Cleveland in Japan and sailed to America. They arrived in San Francisco just before Pearl Harbor. They had no money, no English, just hope, and maybe desperation. New York was where his sister Vera lived. So that's where they went. He worked as a truck driver. He also studied acting with Michael Chekhov. The name Chekhov carried weight, and the training was intense. But Brinner had already survived war zones, addiction, and back-breaking pain. He could survive this too. His chance came fast. In December 1941, he stepped onto a Broadway stage in Twelfth Night, just 15 performances. That's all it lasted. The war had changed everything. Still, his role as Fabian made an impression. He didn't just act. He owned the stage. He barely knew English, but every move and glance landed. The doors didn't swing wide open yet, but they weren't locked anymore either. Then came something nobody expected. Television. In the late 1940s, before he was famous, Brinner became a television director at CBS. He worked on shows like Studio One in Hollywood, Danger and Life with Snarky Parker. He directed with a sharp eye and a tight budget. He learned how stories were built, where to place the camera, when to cut, how to pace. It was early TV. Nothing was easy. But Brinner thrived. It gave him power over the image. Later, when he stood in front of the camera, he would know exactly how to own it. In 1951, everything changed. Rodgers and Hammerstein were casting for The King and I. The role of King Mongkut seemed impossible to fill. They needed someone who could be fierce, funny, proud, and human all at once. Brinner walked into the audition barefoot and shirtless. He didn't act. He commanded. Gertrude Lawrence, already cast as Anna, told the producers, "Hire him." Now they did. On March 29, 1951, the curtain rose at the St. James Theater, and Yul Brynner became the king. But he didn't just play the king. He became him. To prepare, Brynner shaved his head on a whim. No one else was doing that. The bald look stunned everyone. But it worked. It became part of him. He never grew his hair back, not once. The look made him iconic, masculine, mysterious. He opened the door for every bald leading man who followed. He trained his body like a soldier. His voice became deep, powerful and slightly otherworldly. He studied King Mongkut's history and brought it all to the stage. The way he walked, the way he held still. Everything was deliberate. Audiences couldn't look away. He would play the role 4,625 times between 1951 and 1985. 8 shows a week. For 34 years, no other actor in history matched that dedication. He toured around the world. He kept performing even after being diagnosed with lung cancer. He once said, "When I play the king, I am the king." And people believed it, because when he stepped onto that stage, there was no one else. In 1952, he won his first Tony. In 1956, the movie version came out. Brenner reprised his role and won the Academy Award for Best Actor. The film made over $21 million at the box office. Adjusted for today, that's close to $220 million. In 1985, near the end of his life, he received a special Tony Award for his unmatched number of performances. Yul Brynner didn't start his career as the bold, bald icon most people remember. In fact, when he first appeared on screen in 1949's Port of New York, he had a full head of wavy hair and played a character completely unlike anything he'd ever do again. He was Paul Vicola, a smooth-talking, cold-hearted heroin trafficker. The film was one of the first in America to openly deal with the subject of heroin smuggling. And Brynner, he stood out. Elegant, deadly, and strange. He played a villain who listened to weird piano music while plotting murder. That kind of eerie charm stuck with audiences. It wasn't the kind of role that Hollywood would let him repeat, but it lit a fire. That performance, small as it was, revealed something powerful. Brynner had presence. That presence exploded in 1956. It was the year everything changed for him. He starred in The Ten Commandments, playing the proud Pharaoh Ramesses, opposite Charlton Heston's Moses. The movie cost $13 million to make, an insane amount back then, and made $122.7 million at the box office. It was the highest-grossing film of the year. That same year, he starred in Anastasia with Ingrid Bergman, playing a Russian general with quiet control and sharp cunning. Both movies were huge hits, but it didn't stop there. In 1956, Brynner also won the Academy Award for Best Actor for his role in The King and I. 3 major films, 1 Oscar, all in the same year. Very few actors in Hollywood history have ever had a year like that. But success didn't come without problems. During the filming of Anastasia, things got tense between Brynner and Bergman. She had just come back to Hollywood after being blacklisted for a scandal, and emotions were high. At one point, Brynner reportedly called her a big horse. It wasn't a joke. People on set were shocked. The comment reflected a power struggle between 2 stars, used to being the center of attention. And yet, despite the tension, or maybe because of it, their scenes together sizzled. The characters they played were trapped in a dance of manipulation and mystery. And that energy spilled over from real life. Their chemistry was electric, but off-screen. Their relationship stayed icy. Then, in 1960, Brynner took a turn towards something completely different. He became Chris Adams in The Magnificent Seven. Dressed in black, calm and controlled, he led a team of gunslingers to defend a poor village. It wasn't just a Western. It was a bold remake of Seven Samurai, and it brought a new style of hero to American movies. Brynner didn't yell or swagger. He led with quiet strength and quiet pain. That role changed how Western heroes were portrayed. The movie became a classic. It even got sequels, a TV show, and a remake decades later. In 2013, it was officially recognized by the Library of Congress for its cultural value. Brynner's performance helped make that happen. With that one role, he carved out a new kind of myth, one that stood alongside his king and pharaoh. The set of The Magnificent Seven in 1960 looked like a Western masterpiece on the surface. But behind the camera, things were messy. The trouble started with two powerful names, Yul Brynner and Steve McQueen. Brynner was already a star, known for The King and I, and played the lead, Chris Adams. McQueen was still rising, but he had that cool, rough edge people loved. At first, it seemed like they'd work well together, but McQueen wasn't happy with his small role. Only 7 lines, and he didn't just complain. He decided to steal every scene he could. McQueen got creative. He didn't fight with words. He fought with distractions. When Brynner had important lines, McQueen would play with his hat, shake his shotgun shells, or scoop water with his cowboy hat. He'd even twist in his saddle, just enough to pull attention away. These little moves drove Brynner crazy. It got so bad. He hired someone just to count how many times McQueen tried to steal the scene. That count became a running joke. But Brynner wasn't laughing. He was boiling inside. It didn't take long before things exploded. One day, after getting upstaged again, Brynner lost it. He slammed his script down and stormed off set. That kind of outburst wasn't rare. Every day on set felt like walking on a tightrope. Everyone knew another blow-up could happen at any moment. And it wasn't just about scenes. It got personal. One of the strangest parts of the feud was about height. Brynner was about 5 feet 8 inches, maybe even shorter, and he hated looking small on camera. So he'd build little dirt mounds to stand on during outdoor scenes. McQueen noticed and made it a game. He would walk by and casually kick the mounds flat, sometimes right before a take. It was petty, but it worked. It made Brynner furious, and it showed just how far each man would go to be the one on top. Eventually, it all boiled over. One day, Brynner couldn't take it anymore. He grabbed McQueen in front of everyone and warned him to stop. McQueen didn't care. Later he said, "We didn't get along." Maybe he thought I was a threat. The fight didn't fix anything, but it forced both men to at least fake peace. They finished the film with a cold truce, but the tension never really disappeared. The drama on set actually became part of the film's legend. Some say the tension added to the movie's energy, but at the time, it nearly wrecked the whole project. Brynner wasn't just worried about scenes. He wanted control of the whole film. He pushed for more lines, more close-ups, and more screen time. Even the director, John Sturges, got tired of it. Brynner would argue about the script constantly, trying to grab every powerful moment for himself. He even kept track of how many lines he had compared to the others, and he'd push for changes until he felt like the center of attention. It slowed production and annoyed the rest of the cast, who felt pushed aside. He also didn't trust the camera crew to film him right. He would tell them how to light the scene, where to place the camera, and even how to block out other actors. He wanted every angle to favor him. Taller, stronger, more central. He stood on boxes or mounds to look bigger than guys like James Coburn, who was 6 feet 2 inches. It got so extreme that people started joking about it, but they were also annoyed. It felt like the film was becoming all about Brynner and nobody else. James Coburn especially had enough. He was calm, professional, and didn't like drama, but he couldn't stand Brynner's behavior. During one group scene, Brynner got so upset over McQueen stealing the spotlight again that he demanded a reshoot with him as the main focus. Coburn had heard enough. He turned to someone and said he's the biggest damn baby in the West, and he meant it. Even years later, Coburn didn't like to talk about Brynner. The bad feelings ran that deep. At just 17 years old, Yul Brynner was already falling apart. He had become addicted to opium, not because he was chasing thrills, but because he was in pain. Years earlier, while performing as a trapeze artist in France, he had suffered a serious back injury. The pain didn't go away, and the only thing that helped was narcotics. By 1937, he was hooked, fully addicted, and just a teenager. His family knew he was in deep trouble. His aunt, Vera, a doctor, stepped in. She didn't waste time. She arranged for him to go to Switzerland for treatment. It wasn't some quiet retreat. It was a full-blown medical program. He spent 1 whole year in Lausanne under constant supervision. He even went through hypnotherapy. The treatment was expensive, but Vera paid for it. She believed he could recover, and she was right. After that year, Ewell never touched drugs again. He had won one of the hardest battles of his life, but another one was already beginning. After quitting opium, he picked up cigarettes. It started small, but soon it became just as powerful a habit. He smoked constantly. On movie sets, backstage, at home, he was never without a cigarette. This addiction didn't ruin his career like opium might have, but it ruined something else: his health. Years later, his lungs began to fail. The man who once beat one of the deadliest drugs couldn't beat the one sold at every street corner. In the early 1980s, he was diagnosed with inoperable lung cancer. Still, he kept working. He didn't stop until the very end. On October 10, 1985, he died at the age of 65. But before he passed, he recorded a powerful message. It aired after his death. He looked into the camera and said, "Now that I'm gone, I tell you, don't smoke. Whatever you do, just don't smoke." His pain didn't start with drugs. It started much earlier when he was just 3 years old. In 1923, his father left, gone without warning. He had chosen another woman and never came back. Ewell's mother was left alone to raise him and his sister. They moved from place to place, starting in Harbin, China, and drifting across countries trying to find safety and a new life. That early loss never left him. Even when he was famous, that scar stayed open. Friends noticed. There were moments when his mask slipped. Tears, long silences, deep sadness. He worked hard, earned fame, but still carried that pain. He barely spoke about his childhood. When asked, he would change the story. One time, he'd say he was born in Russia. The next in Mongolia, he kept people guessing. Not for fun, but to hide the truth. That secrecy was his armor. He didn't want anyone to dig too deep. Even close friends knew not to ask too much. And when someone suggested therapy, he refused. He once said, "The day anyone stretches me out on a couch, I'll be either drunk or dead." Ewell Brenner's love life was like one of his movies, bold, dramatic, and full of surprises. He got married 4 times. The first was in 1944 to actress Virginia Gilmore. They had a son named Ewell Rock Brenner, the second in 1946. The marriage ended in 1960. That same year, he married a Chilean model named Doris Kleiner. They had a daughter, Victoria, in 1962. Her godmother was Audrey Hepburn. In 1971, he married again. This time, it was a French socialite named Jacqueline Thion de la Chaume. Together, they adopted 2 daughters from Vietnam. Mia was born in 1974 and Melody in 1975. The adoptions happened during the Vietnam War, and it made headlines around the world. But the marriage didn't last. In 1981, it ended, partly because Brenner wouldn't stop touring with the King and I, and partly because of his affairs. Then came the most surprising twist. In 1983, at 62 years old, Brenner married a 26-year-old ballerina from Malaysia named Kathy Lee. They met during a London performance. They stayed together until he died in 1985. His love life crossed countries, cultures, and huge age gaps, and he always seemed to chase the spotlight, even in his private life. But it wasn't just his wives. Brenner had affairs with some of the biggest stars in Hollywood. In the early 1950s, he had a passionate 4-year relationship with Marlene Dietrich. She was 19 years older and completely obsessed. Her daughter said she would even brag about the messy state of her bed after he visited. In the late 1940s, he had a fling with Judy Garland during one of the hardest times in her life. After they split, she tried to save her marriage. Then came Joan Crawford. She saw him on stage and decided she had to have him. Biographers said she was mesmerized. And while filming Anastasia in 1956, he had a brief affair with Ingrid Bergman. Her personal life was already a mess because of her romance with Roberto Rossellini, and Brinner just added more fuel to the fire. These weren't just quick flings. They happened during some of the worst, most public struggles in these women's lives. Somehow, Brinner was always at the center of it, mysterious and magnetic. His family was just as complicated. His first child, Rock, was born in 1946. He grew up to be a writer and a historian. In 1959, Brinner had another daughter, Lark, with an actress named Frankie Tilden. He supported Lark financially, but wasn't very involved in her life. Then came Victoria in 1962, who became a fashion consultant in Beverly Hills. Mia and Melody, the adopted girls from Vietnam, were part of the most dramatic chapter. Melody even survived a plane crash near Saigon before coming to the United States to live with Brinner. The adoptions were a mix of kindness and publicity. He cared, but he also made sure the world noticed. When Brinner died, his kids were scattered across the globe. They had different lives, different mothers, and different memories of him. But together, they showed the strange global family he created. There was another twist. Brinner lied about who he really was. He told people he was born on a remote island. He said he had Mongolian blood. He claimed to be a circus performer. None of it was true. After his death, Rock decided to find out the real story. In 1989, he published a memoir and exposed everything. Brinner had actually been born in Vladivostok, Russia. His father was a Swiss-Russian engineer. His mother was Russian. Most of the wild stories were just things he made up to keep people guessing. Rock's book was part love letter, part rebellion. He respected his father, but he also wanted people to know the truth. He pulled the curtain back on a man who spent most of his life hiding behind it. Yul Brynner looked like a king. On stage, in movies, in photos, he was powerful, proud, and in control. But at home, things were different. He wasn't around much. He did The King and I over 4,600 times. That kind of schedule left no time for being a full-time dad or husband. His third wife left partly because he wouldn't stop touring, and his affairs never stopped either. Still, he tried. He gave money to Lark. He gave Victoria a luxurious life. He adopted Mia and Melody, maybe to build a real home. But the truth is, his work and fame always came first. Yul Brynner had always been larger than life. But in September 1983, just hours before stepping on stage for his 4,000th performance of The King and I, his life took a painful turn. Doctors told him he had lung cancer. It was inoperable. The tumor was too close to his heart. There was nothing they could do. Brynner had been a heavy smoker since he was 12. At his worst, he smoked 5 packs a day. He finally quit in 1971, but the damage had already been done. By the 1980s, lung cancer had become the leading cause of cancer deaths in American men. It was killing more people than colon, breast, or prostate cancer combined. And now it was killing him. But instead of hiding, Brynner did something brave. He turned his illness into a warning. Before he died, he recorded a short video that would air after his death. In the ad, his eyes locked onto the camera. His voice, deep and serious, gave a final message. Now that I'm gone, I tell you, don't smoke. Whatever you do, just don't smoke. The commercial first aired in 1986. It was only 30 seconds long, but it hit hard. Millions saw it. Many quit smoking because of it. Brynner, once known for his powerful roles, had given his most important performance in that half-minute message. His words still echo in anti-smoking campaigns around the world. On October 10, 1985, at 1 a.m., Yul Brynner died in New York Hospital Cornell Medical Center. He was 65. His wife, Kathy Lee, his 4 children, and close friends were at his side. The world lost a bold actor, a fearless man, and a voice for change. Before he passed, Brenner asked to be buried in France. It was a place close to his heart. He was laid to rest in the small cemetery of the Abbé Royal Saint-Michel de Bois-Aubry, near Louzet, between Tours and Poitiers. The old abbey, surrounded by peace and history, became his final home.